Now to the impact on America. The Biden-Harris foreign policy of no deterrence for adversaries and a wide open border has invited hundreds of terrorists that we know of into America. Over 350 individuals on the U.S. terrorist watch list have been apprehended at the southern border in just the last 3 years. Among the most troubling, dangerous gangs from Venezuela, causing Texas Governor Greg Abbott this week to act, officially designating the TREN de Aragua Venezuelan gang a foreign terrorist threat. After the group took over an apartment building in Aurora, Colorado a few weeks ago, harassing residents, they tried to do the same thing to a hotel in El Paso, Texas last week. The governor continuing his fight to protect America's southern border and the impact of 10 million illegals entering America under the Biden-Harris administration. Joining me now with the very latest is the man.
For people who are voting, if you ask me, right, and I want to know what you guys think about this. For people who are voting, these numbers alone should make the decision. If you guys agree, give me a thumbs up. If you guys disagree, give me a thumbs down. I don't know how people could go to the voting booth, see these numbers, know these numbers, and then still vote for the people who are responsible for these numbers. As a matter of fact, if you ask me, these numbers are so bad that the people who are responsible for these numbers, they shouldn't, like, these numbers are so bad, the numbers should be keeping these people off of the ballot. I don't understand how, I don't even understand how they still have a place on the ballot. That to me is bizarre. If you guys would agree that that's extremely bizarre, give me a thumbs up. If you guys would disagree, then give me a thumbs down.
Man himself, Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Governor, thanks very much for being here this morning. We so appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Please talk to us about TREN de Aragua and what moved you to designate them a foreign threat.
They are known as the most treacherous international gang. Unlike the Mexican drug cartels, they actually come into countries and try to establish a base in those countries and then be able to wreak carnage with their criminal behavior. And remember this, and that is the policy by the Biden administration is to allow any Venezuelan who wants to come into our country to enter here. And because the Biden administration does not have diplomatic relationships with Venezuela, there's no background checks or background information on any of these people coming from Venezuela to the United States. And hence, it makes it so easy for this TDA Venezuela gang that's so treacherous to come to the United States and set up bases. There are bases in New York and other states across the country, and now including even in the state of Texas. My top goal is to make sure that we protect our fellow Texans, and so I declared this organization a foreign terrorist organization, organized our anti-gang units across the entire state of Texas so that law enforcement at the federal, state, and local levels prioritize this group. We identify them, we seek them out, we arrest them and put them in jail so that TDA will take their activities elsewhere.
Yeah. So what can you do that you couldn't do before because you named them, designated them a foreign terrorist group?
So this is an action pursuant to a law that I signed this last session in the state of Texas that gives the state some additional powers. One is to use court procedures that will accelerate the process going after them. Another that will allow the seizure of any type of property that TDA has in the state of Texas. A third is one that increases criminal penalties against them so that when we do arrest them, they will be behind bars sometimes with mandatory minimum sentences of at least a decade or more.
Governor, what do you think the policies will be at the border if Kamala Harris wins this election? She's done a lot of flip-flopping, as you know, from fracking to the border, and she claims that she will protect the border. Of course, we know she hasn't done so in the last 3.5 years, but what would you expect should she win this race?
So you can expect what she's done as vice president. You can expect what she articulated when she first ran for president, and that is she supports eliminating illegal immigration as a crime. She supports giving magnet-drawing immigration policies such as free health care to people crossing the border. She believes in eliminating ICE.
Now, let me ask you guys this, right? When it comes to what Abbott is saying here, is he correct? Is he fair in his assessment of Kamala Harris? Or should what he says be looked past? Because again, if you ask me, as I'm listening to what he's saying, I don't disagree with what he's saying. Why should she not? Why should she not be held accountable at the booth to her words? And why should people have an issue with it just because Abbott is saying it? On social media, on YouTube, all over the place, a lot of influential YouTubers have created a culture of if somebody that you don't like or somebody that you have an issue with for whatever reason says 1 + 1, then somehow it doesn't equal 2 anymore. A lot of the social media content creators that people look at as thought leaders, who are actually not thought leaders at all, they're cult leaders and echo chamber leaders. And people don't like the people that they like being talked about in that way. But what should be more important than those people being talked about and actually talked about in an honest way, the way that they actually are, and the disasters and horrible thought processes and cognitive ways of looking at things that they've created on social media with their cults and phraseology, is that they claim to be trying to create a more informed voter when they're actually creating an illogical thought process. Abbott said the same thing that I said about Kamala Harris. Now, I'm gonna ask you guys this question: does that make me a coon? Because there's plenty of social media content creators, especially certain places on YouTube, that, you know, I'm a coon. But then at the same time, they'll flip out about border policy. They'll flip out about migrants. They even got special things and, you know, words and different ways to describe these type of people, right? What kind of sense does that make? So as far as like upholding the monolith, like we've said before, there's two types of there's two monoliths. There's two monoliths. There's the old monolith, and then there's the new monolith, right? And neither of them does anything efficiently. Both of them will ultimately have the same results. You know what I'm saying?
Check the border. Of course, we know she hasn't done so in the last 3.5 years, but what would you expect should she win this race?
So you can expect what she's done as vice president. You can expect what she articulated when she first ran for president, and that is she supports eliminating illegal immigration as a crime. She supports giving magnet-drawing immigration policies such as free health care to people crossing the border. She believes in eliminating ICE. This would be the most destructive border policy ever, making Biden's border policy actually even look good. And so as bad as illegal immigration is already, it will be far worse under a Harris administration.
Hey, look, shout out to Deacon Dave. Deacon Dave said, quote unquote, I'm a coon, quote unquote, technically. Listen, over here, we got this saying. There's a thin line between pro-blacks and coons. You know what I'm saying? There's a very thin line. So, you know, that's how, just so you know the culture, you know what I'm saying? That's how we look at it. At least that's how I look at it. You know, it might not be everybody that watches the content might not be on board with me on that, but just so people know, and most people do in here, that's my position. My position on that whole thing is that there is and we call it the thin black line. You know what I'm saying? And we show when a lot of the coons say the same things or behave in the same ways as pro-blacks, that there's a very thin line. There's a small line of fabric like space-time, like quantum foam that holds pro-blacks and coons together. And one of the biggest differences is not rhetoric. One of the biggest differences is not behavior. The biggest difference is audience. The biggest difference is audience and reason for delivering the message to that audience. Not so much ideology, not so much different beliefs. It's just audience. It's just who they sell their product to. That's it. It's the only difference. They want the same things. Interestingly, say the same things. Interestingly, and in many cases, the motivation is the same. In many cases, the motivation for, you know, quote unquote, being pro-black and the motivation for being a coon is rooted in simping. A lot of times, it's rooted in simping. You know what I'm saying? So that's our official position. You know what I'm saying?
Administration.
Yeah, and you know, they're boasting about the fact that the numbers are down from the highs. I mean, at the highs, what we were talking about, 8,000 people a day coming through the border there in Texas. But those numbers are down. What we don't talk about is the fact that oftentimes they're down because this administration has decided to start flying them in, right? They're putting them on planes, flying them to swing states across the country.
Well, you are true, but let's be clear about something else. So they're claiming that the numbers are down because of Biden's executive order in June. The reality is, because of action that Texas took, they began going down last year.
Right.
Because Texas represents 2/3 of the border, because we reduced illegal immigration by about 85% in the state of Texas, of course, the border numbers are going to be down. But you mentioned something else that not enough Americans know, and that is another reason.
So look, to add on to that, right? To add on to that little tangent, right? How many people saw TD's video about Mark Robinson? If you guys saw the TD Media Group video about Mark Robinson, give me a thumbs up. If you guys did not see the TD Media Group video about Mark Robinson, give me a thumbs down. Now, why am I saying that? I'm saying that to say this. If you listen to Mark Robinson, if you took his name away and you just wrote down what he said on a piece of paper, people would say, oh man, listen to him. Oh, he preaching. Listen to him. He preaching. Listen to him. He's preaching. And then when you reveal who said it, it was Mark Robinson. It was Mark Robinson. And I'm saying that to say this. These people are all the same. These people, they're all the same. You know what I'm saying? They're all the same.
Why the crossings at the border are down is because Biden is flying them across the border and then moving them to cities across the entire United States.
Extraordinary, simply extraordinary. Governor, real quick on this gang, what do you see in Texas in terms of the Tren de Aragua? I know that there are plenty of stories of these individuals running around New York City as well, doing petty crimes, but what's the worst of it? What have you seen?
Well, one of the worst parts of it is the Tren de Aragua gang were involved allegedly in the shooting and the attack and the assault of those New York police officers.
Right.
They were involved in the killing of Laken Riley.